São Paulo, a metropolis, teeming with life, a vibrant tapestry of cultures, a financial heart-pumping energy throughout Brazil. Yet, beneath its glittering facade, a darkness festers. Inequality casts long shadows, pushing the marginalized to the fringes, where they become invisible to those with power. Here, in the forgotten corners of the megacity, another story unfolds. A story of fear, of unchecked brutality, of lives shattered by those sworn to protect. This is the reality for many in São Paulo's poorest neighborhoods. They live under the constant threat of violence, not from criminals, but from the very force meant to keep them safe, the Polícia Militar. The weight of this paradox, the protector transformed into the aggressor, hangs heavy in the air. It is a reality we can no longer ignore. The stories are legion, each more horrifying than the last. A young man, unarmed and posing no threat, thrown from a bridge into a river by police officers, his pleas for mercy swallowed by the rushing water. An innocent bystander, caught in the crossfire of a police operation, riddled with 11 bullets. His life brutally extinguished. These are not isolated incidents. They are symptomatic of a deeply ingrained culture of violence and impunity within the Polícia Militar. A culture where the poor, the black, the marginalized are seen as the enemy, as disposable, their lives holding little value in the eyes of those meant to protect them. Consider the case of name of the man thrown into a stream, a young man whose life was tragically cut short by a brutal act of police violence. On that fateful day, he was simply walking home, his every move captured on a nearby security camera. The footage, a chilling testament to the casual brutality of his attackers, sparked outrage and protests across Brazil. Governor Tarcísio de Freitas, the man elected to serve and protect all citizens of São Paulo, has remained conspicuously silent on the issue of police violence. His silence speaks volumes. It is a silence that screams complicity, a tacit endorsement of the brutality inflicted upon the city's most vulnerable residents. The governor's inaction, his refusal to acknowledge the systemic nature of the problem, is a betrayal of the public trust. It is a betrayal of the families who have lost loved ones to police brutality. Families who are still waiting for justice, for answers, for someone in power to finally listen. Instead of addressing the issue head-on, Governor Freitas has chosen to deflect and downplay. He has dismissed the concerns of human rights groups and community leaders as isolated incidents, refusing to acknowledge the systemic rot at the heart of the Polícia Militar. Beyond the bullet wounds, the deep scars of systemic injustice, the violence inflicted by the Polícia Militar extends far beyond the physical scars of bullets and batons. It leaves deep psychological wounds, eroding trust in law enforcement and creating a climate of fear and paranoia in the very communities they are meant to protect. Imagine living in a community where the sight of a police car triggers not a sense of security, but a primal instinct to flee. Imagine the constant fear, the knowledge that your life, the lives of your loved ones, could be snuffed out at any moment by those sworn to protect you. This is the reality for far too many residents of São Paulo's poorest neighborhoods. They live in a perpetual state of fear, trapped in a cycle of violence and oppression. A city on the precipice, between despair and the seeds of hope. São Paulo stands at a crossroads. The path forward is fraught with uncertainty, a perilous journey between despair and the fragile hope for a more just and equitable future. The weight of history, of centuries of oppression and injustice, hangs heavy in the air. Yet, even in the darkest of times, the human spirit finds a way to persevere. Amidst the despair, seeds of hope are being sown. Across São Paulo, a new generation is rising up, a generation unwilling to accept the status quo, a generation determined to break the cycle of violence and create a better future for themselves and their children. From fear to action, a collective cry for dignity and justice. The time for silence is over. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. We can no longer stand idly by while the most vulnerable among us are brutalized by those sworn to protect them. We can no longer tolerate the deafening silence from our elected officials. We must demand accountability. We must demand justice. We must demand an end to the culture of impunity that allows police violence to flourish. This is not a task for the faint of heart, for the faint. A new dawn for São Paulo, towards a future free from fear. The road ahead will be long and arduous. There will be setbacks and disappointments. But we must never give up hope. We must never stop believing in the power of the human spirit to overcome even the most daunting of challenges. Let us work together to build a better future for São Paulo. A future where all citizens are treated with dignity and respect. A future where the police are seen as protectors, not predators. And where every life is valued, regardless of race, class, or zip code. Let us create a São Paulo where the shadows of fear and violence are replaced by the bright light of hope and justice.